Hello and welcome to Writers and Books Visiting Author Series. My name is Dan Hurd. I'm the Director of Adult Programs. Writers and Books is a nonprofit literary arts center in Rochester, New York. We offer readings, workshops, and literary programming for people of all ages, all currently available online. Our theme for 2021 is Taking Care. We'll be celebrating all the ways we can take care of ourselves and take care of others this year. Check out our full upcoming schedule at wab.org. We're so excited to have Lyz Lenz with us this evening. First, we'll hear from Lyz, then she'll be in conversation with Megan Stielstra, author of the essay collection, The Wrong Way to Save Your Life. Please say hello in the chat and let us know you're there. Feel free to submit questions to the Q&A function. Lyz's book, Belabored, is available through our bookstore, Ampersand Books. I'll put the link in the chat. In Belabored, A Vindication of the Rights of Pregnant Women, journalist Lyz Lenz lays bare the misogynistic logic of cultural narratives about pregnancy, tracing them back to our nation's murky soup of religious and historical myths. With her trademark blend of wit, snark, and raw intimacy, Lyz explores how received opinions inform our expectations for pregnant people. Throughout, she reflects on her own experiences of being seen alternately as a vessel or a goddess, but hardly ever as herself, while carrying each of her two children. Lyz Lenz is also the author of Godland. Her writing has appeared in the Huffington Post, the Washington Post, the Columbia Journalism Review, the New York Times, and elsewhere. Her essay, All the Angry Women, was included in the anthology Not That Bad, edited by Roxane Gay. Lyz lives in Iowa with her two kids and two cats. Now I'll turn it over to Megan Stielstra.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks, everyone. So part of digging into an honest conversation about life and birth and motherhood in this beautiful, complicated mess of a world means acknowledging the history that we're all living in right now. Today is the 1-year anniversary of this pandemic. It is a terrifying political climate. There is a racial uprising centuries in the making and the deeply personal mountains that each of us are moving every day. I know that some of you are teachers, some of you are nurses, some of you are involved in organizing and rapid response. You're trying to make art, you're trying to make rent, you are caring for people who are sick, you are caring for seniors, you are caring for children and making impossible choices in impossible conditions. I see you, mothers. And in the midst of all this work and fear and change, I hope you're caring for yourself just a little bit too. I think we put our own selves second or third or not at all. And if you can see yourself in that sentence, I invite you to breathe. Lyz wrote in Belabored that it is an attempt to plumb the depths and the meaning of the texts of our bodies. And I don't know about y'all, but my body needs to breathe. It needs to cry and eat and rage and howl at the moon and be here with you, Lyz, and your dog and all of you listening. And thank you to Dan and the team at Writers and Books for making this weird and wonderful Zoom space for all of us. When you're at the bookstore, ampersand, buying Belabored, get yourself another book or 2 or 5 because bookstores need us and we need them. And this is how we're going to rebuild the whole entire world. Lyz, hi, I love you.
Hi, Megan. Megan and I have never met in person, but we're such huge fans of each other's, or I'm a huge fan of hers and have been for years and years and years. So it's nice to be here.
Yeah, we're just gonna high five each other on Zoom and then also maybe cry on Zoom extensively. But before we do all of that, Lyz, will you read to us? Will you read for us?
Sure. Yeah. I have so many mixed feelings about reading on Zooms. I did a couple of readings in the beginning of pandemic and just I hated it. But I am going to read some fun bits. My book is divided up into 4 trimesters, and each trimester has each little chapter essay in it. And so it's organized kind of thematically. And at the beginning of each trimester, I have these little these little like guides to what the trimester will bring, and they're kind of sarcastic. So I'm going to read the one from the first trimester because it's my favorite. Well, I love all my children equally. But we'll read from that. So it starts, "Congratulations, you are pregnant. Those 2 lines that appear on the plastic stick you peed on tell you with 99% accuracy that you are fucked. Congratulations! From this moment on, your body is no longer yours. Already you have Google searched your symptoms, and already you have typed, "What should I do if I am pregnant?" Already you have ceded autonomy. It's not your fault. You have been trained to submit your body to the greater authority. Soon your obstetrician will weigh in. They'll give you a list of acceptable foods and medicines. Mothers will stroke your stomach. Strangers will comment. You are used to being told how to carry yourself, how to dress yourself, how to be yourself. But this is different. Whatever little was yours is now gone, lost to the life inside of you. Do it for the baby. Don't do that. You'll hurt the baby. Maybe you wanted to create life. Instead, you will find yourself trapped in a black hole of expectations and demands. You cannot win. Abstain from all but the purest air and water, and you will be labeled an uptight bitch. Say fuck it all and drink a glass of wine, consume some caffeine, and you'll be told you're endangering your child. Everything endangers your child. High heels, cold medicine, working, not working, painting your nails, not painting your nails, eating too much, not eating enough, breathing, living. Everything is a threat. You are the threat. Politicians will decide when your fetus is viable. Politicians will tell you that you don't get a say in whether to bring this zygote from cell to human life. Healthcare decisions you thought were yours will be ripped from your hands. Vaginal delivery, C-section, you need to make a plan, but your plan rarely will be honored. After, if you breastfeed, people will tell you to cover up when you nurse. Corporations will penalize you for taking time off. Childcare will be unaffordable. If you're a white woman with a white smile, ruffly blouse, and possibly clean white jeans, a sign that reads "Live, Laugh, Love" on your wall, and a perfect blonde curls cascading down your back, how does she do it? And with a baby. Strangers will smile at you and tell you you are blessed. But people will also tell you to use cloth diapers or disposable. Whichever one you are using is the wrong one. Whatever you do is wrong. You are exactly what society has told you to be, and yet you are still wrong. And if you don't look like that woman, if you are Black, gay, trans, Asian, brown, Muslim, disabled, divorced, if you are a step parent or you adopted, if you ever had an abortion, if you are on food stamps, if you are anything other than that blonde, live, laugh, love woman whose name is probably Kinley, and there I have a little note at the bottom. My apologies to Kinley. You didn't choose to be perfect, but you were just born that way, Kinley. I'm sure people criticize you too, like we are doing now. See, you can't win. We can't win. Congratulations, we are mothers. So back to Kinley. Your body has now become a war zone. It will be legislated, stared at, debated in public. People will ask you who the father is. People will ask you how to manage, how you cope. Maybe they'll tell you that you are a hero. Don't you love hearing that right now in pandemic? Mothers are heroes. I want to die. But it will be in that same voice that they say you have baby shit on your shirt. Or worse, they will say you aren't a real mother. Worse, you'll be excluded from the narrative. Congratulations. And bringing life into this world, no matter how you do this, you have forfeited your own life. Sacrifice your body on the altar of motherhood. Everything you do is scrutinized. Every mouthful you eat is watched. Every shoe or clothing choice is judged against the observer's notion of what is good for the baby. Congratulations, you are now more myth than human, more of an ideal than an individual. Now the most important thing about you is how you used your uterus. Now you will forever be defined by this relationship. Now people will send you cards with pastel pansies on them telling you you are a good mother. People will tell you that what you are doing is good and noble. Then these same people will go vote away your health care, your paid maternity leave, your birth control, all the while calling you #blessed. I don't know how you do it all, they will say, while also making it incredibly difficult to do it all. Congratulations and welcome to this magical journey. Your body is a mystery. The landscape of your flesh is a region unknown to the very people insisting the loudest that they know what you should do. This means that your body is a palimpsest written over and over by millennia of expectations and myth. The science of life is a dark art derived more from cultural expectations than objective data. As such, your body, now full of the kindling of life and power, ignites our cultural anxieties, over which we lay our desires, fear, and envy. Congratulations. Just leave it at that. I think that's pretty good.
Okay, real quick lay of the land, everyone. Lyz and I are going to talk for a little bit, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. So if you can keep one eye on the bottom of your Zoom screen here, there's a Q&A section, and I'll start pulling from those shortly. But just as a place to start, in hearing that particular passage, Lyz, like I all through the book, you talk about what it means to not be seen anymore. But just as a mother listening to this, I feel more seen in those 3 pages than I think I have in any other moment. It's one of the things where, like, just reading the galley, I was standing up and cheering. And I'm wondering, I'm far from the only mother who read your book and had that experience. And I'm wondering about the stories that pregnant people and mothers of all different kinds have told you since this book came out into the world. Because I feel this urge now to be like, here's everything that happened to me, Lyz. And I'm wondering what stories you're carrying now.
You know, it's so difficult. Actually, this book, I mean, I turned in final drafts of this book right before I started really reporting on the caucuses in earnest, the Iowa caucuses. And so some of my trips for the book were some of the last ones before I took a couple caucus trips, and then the world shut down. And so, and when the book came out, it came out the day after an inland hurricane tore through my town. So honestly, the book has come out in a world in which I haven't been able to experience the book. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't, like, I've hardly gotten to I've had Zooms with people, right? But that's so different than going to a bookstore and meeting people who stand in line and talk to you and tell you wonderful stories and connect with you, which is one of my favorite parts of actually being a writer, because I'm an extrovert, and like I just love that. And I think people are so great, especially people who get passionate about books and come to book events. I also love to go to book events too, and be that person in line. So, you know, most of the stories I heard were before, and of course lots of people have written me kindly and sent me DMs, but you know, I guess what I'm hearing is just like you know, I think people's birth stories, gosh, one, I love hearing them. Two, they always got me, even if they're good, because it's still such a hard, weird, wonderful thing. And I just feel like moms are really mad right now. Just like everybody who I've heard from post the book coming out is just like, I'm so, like, I've heard a lot of people say, like, I ripped through the book in just a couple of hours and now I want to punch a man.
Right. Or the wall, or anything that is the closest. Closest to it. Well, I'm thinking about those stories because that's another thing that I found so remarkable in the book, was just the back and forth between the deep research that you were doing as an investigative journalist, but also just it's also a stunning piece as a memoir, which, like, I teach memoir, so this is a thing that I'm always clocking. And you write in the book that often facts are less powerful and less important than stories. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about, like, that decision on form that went into making the book, of like, how much were you going to include of your personal experience? How much were you going to dig into the research, whether research means interviews or the raw data? Like, what was that planning process like for you?
You know, it was so interesting. I did talk to a lot of people for the book, a lot of doctors, midwives, a lot of women told me their stories. I didn't include them. I mean, they informed the book, absolutely, and focused my writing, but I didn't really include as much of that in the book because this is always the struggle in writing, right? Like I believe that essays, which I think this book is structured with essays, are more powerful when you can tell the reader why to care. And, initially when I sold the book, I had planned it being more research based and less memoir. But my whole life fell apart while I was writing kind of two books at the same time. Godland came out last year, and then this book came out this year, or 2020. And so I got divorced, and I went from being like an upper middle class white mom with a boy and a girl. I did it, boy and girl, done. And yeah, American dream, baby. And I'm just joking to everybody listening. I'm not placing value on gender or identity. I know it's all constructed, but so when I sat down to write the book, I was like, then I got divorced, and then I was struggling for money, and I had to like ask my parents for like grocery money, and I was living in this crappy rented house where the basement filled up all the time, and my kids now call it the mold house. We're out of there now, but they but I was a completely different person, and I didn't know if I could write the book, because as I was going through my research and my notes and everything to write the book, I was like, I didn't want to write it because I didn't want to read it. Like I needed to write something else. And so I actually talked to the editor about maybe like buying my way out of the book contract, because I didn't get a lot of money for it. And I was like, I don't know if I can write this. And she helped me restructure the book so that it could be different. That's when we came up with the 4 trimesters organization. But I remember one of my friends, who's the amazing writer Matthew Salesses, who's like up for a Penn Faulkner Award for his amazing book on the craft of writing. But he was like, just write it. He was like, just put it all in there. He was like, stop trying to separate the two, and this is why his book on craft is so good. But he was like, your story is your flesh. Like your flesh is your story. Like you cannot separate the two. And so when I finally did actually sit down to write, I had written a bunch of stuff before that I kind of tossed out. And so then when I sat down to write, those were the words going through my mind, that like, this is really just, I want to be as inclusive as possible, but I also want to pay homage to the fact that our flesh is the story. It's not really science. It's not really research. I mean, like, look at the history of medicine. Like, I wish it was based in science and research, or that science and research is based on the fundamental, abuse of people's bodies. I believe in vaccines. People should get vaccines. Yes. But, we have to talk about the complicated, troubled history of American medicine and how we abuse bodies in our scientific research. It's like you can't separate the two, and when we try to ignore one over the other, we're not telling a full and honest narrative. And people can tell, like, people can smell bullshit. So that was a long way of answering your question.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna follow this train of thought for a minute. In a previous life, because I think where I'm at in my life right now is very similar to where you were at when you were in the mold house. That's a bigger story, and your participants don't need to know. But what you just said about the study of medicine and science and the flesh. In another life, I worked in faculty development, and so in a arts and media college in Chicago, I taught teachers, and I helped facilitate the Excellence in Teaching Award process, which was really cool because it meant that I got to go observe hundreds of teachers who were incredible. And one of the teachers that I went to see taught epidemics, and like very, very specifically, like she's writing formulas up. Like I would love to take her class right now with the vaccine in the world. Like she had formulas up on the whiteboard and just talking about the scientific construction of it. But then very quickly she got into Tuskegee. and how
Yes.
that was the Tuskegee syphilis study, and very specifically what that did on Black bodies. And very quickly, the conversation about science turned into a conversation about fear and equity and policy and distrust in the government. And then she whipped that right back around into the science. And it really made me think about just education in this country, which
Yes.
brings me back to Belabored, where so much of what you're talking about is what women and pregnant people don't know about what they're getting into.
Well, and I mean, I think that, you know, like I talk about this in the book, but I went in like, I'm going to trust science. And like, because my mom had been very much just like, she had 8 kids. I'm number 2. After many hospital births, she was like, peace out on that. And my penultimate sibling was born with a midwife and a birthing center. And my mom was like, this is the best. And she also was kind of like, no medicine, we do homeopathy and all this kind of stuff. And that was her journey. And then my journey was very much like, yes, Lori, we'll get to my journey. Yes, because like I was very much just like, well, I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to do trust science and just have my doctor tell me what to do. And I did. And I had a horribly traumatic birth where nobody told me anything that was happening. I learned out later, I was hemorrhaging after losing a lot of blood. All I remember is passing in and out, watching somebody mop my blood up off the floor. And I made a joke at the time. I was like, it looks like the tide at Omaha Beach is what I said. And then passed back out again. But it was, I had no idea what was happening. And I remember going back to my doctor and being like, what happened? She was like, don't worry about it. Like, and I felt so condescended to and so upset. Like, and then when I went to have my second child, I kept having nightmares about that blood on the floor and about dying because I had no idea what had happened. And I finally went back in and demanded answers. But like we pretend with science like it's just like, oh, trust the science, as if science isn't wrapped up in issues of equity, as if it isn't wrapped up in issues of racism. Black women die in childbirth at hugely high rates here in America, and we don't talk about that. And I mean, there was a big ProPublica story, but like, that's something we need to grapple with. Why does that happen? And how can we make it stop? And so, we have these narratives are just like, just trust the science, when we're ignoring the fact that people's bodies get beaten up and abused and discriminated against by science every day. Any woman who has been in pain, who has gone into the doctor and said, I've been in pain, and had her pain ignored, knows that. And so it's not really one or the other. We have to find like humane ways to go about it. But part of my frustration in researching the book was like, and here we'll get to Lori, our midwife here in a second, was like, I don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just let midwives into hospitals. Like, just let people, like, why? It's not that hard. The answers are literally right there before us. Literally, women have been saying for centuries, here's what we need to do. And yet every time a generation of women has babies, we're all like, this sucks. Wonder what we can do to fix it. It's like, there's a part in the book where I just got really frustrated, but I had remembered Matthew's advice, just put it all on the page, because I was like, I need to offer a solution, but literally the solutions have been offered by smarter, better, more award-winning women than me for fucking centuries. So what am I going to say besides exactly what they say? But maybe I'll just say it louder, which is exactly what I wrote on the page. I was like, Arlie Russell Hochschild, and y'all didn't listen to her, so nobody's going to listen to me. But that's the thing. It's like, we have the answers. We just don't have the political will to make it happen. And that's where we are in this pandemic, where we know what it will take to help women. We know women and mothers are in crisis. We know that it is hurting our economy. And yet we would rather just toss money at airlines than help women. Happy pandemic anniversary.
Yeah, I see you in the comments, Lori. Amen. And just thinking about, like, Lori, the midwife, and if there's other midwives in the spaces, or in this particular space, just thinking of the stories that they carry, right? And it to me, it was like it's like an interesting push and pull that you're doing through the whole book, where you're acknowledging how often we feel silenced, right? Like there's this scene where you're on the, oh God, I want to find it. You're on the playground and another mother's talking shit to you about you looking at your phone, and you write, I said nothing, as is the Midwestern way, just quietly seethed with a mixture of rage and guilt, which, oh my God, I felt that in my bones, that line. But in the same sense that the silence feels so huge.
Yes.
You've also been screaming, right?
Yeah, that's the thing when people keep saying about this time, is that women would be screaming if we literally could take a breath to scream. And I do feel like every writer has like their same BS, and one of my BS is silences. And I wrote about the silence in religion, in Godland, and the silences that we have in politics or in our discourse here with Belabored, when it comes to who gets to be considered a mother, and who doesn't, and how we draw those boundaries. But yeah, the silences, I think, are where the important stories are told, and where the important things happen. Yeah. And in that example where I was in the park, I was working. Like I had no childcare, no help at home, and I was trying to start a writing career with no support. And I don't live near extended family. And so one thing that I would do is I would take my kids to the park and then like work on my phone and send pitches and emails and try to get a little bit of writing done. And then you get the mom being like, well, I like to watch my kids while I play. Really? Are they that interesting? Because I can tell you, kids are boring. Like, what are they going to do? Put sand from one bucket into the other? God, kill me. Like, come on.
Yeah. I think that like we're all, I feel as though like we carry now all of the, like I have a like a Rolodex of all the things that have been said to me like that. I have a Rolodex of things that the mental health, the health, like healthcare professionals have said to me, and just all of these stories spinning around in my head. And I'm thinking too about what that might mean, like the comments that you might get, that you might have gotten, just even trying to talk about this in a book and making a book that's very specifically about birth. Like the thing that I have in mind, I write a lot about postpartum depression, and at a reading, I read an essay about it. And then afterwards I went to the bar to get some whiskey because that's some heavy stuff to read, right? And the bartender said, well, that was a good mom story. And like that's the thing that I know that you and I, like, I see us get it on the internet all of the time, but like also getting it in person, and it makes me it makes me very sad just to think about all the human beings who physically haven't given birth but still need to understand the bigger implications of birthing people in this country.
I mean, oh God, this is good. There's so, like, it's the thing. Like, I read books by men about things that I will never do because I can't, because I don't have a penis. So, like, it's like, but like, that's,
you got a power washer.
I do have a power washer, so I am a dad now. So I could be ready to do a full Hemingway here in a minute, and just like drink and then power wash, which is what I assume Hemingway did. But but yeah, like, like this is like, motherhood's a vital part of America, not just America, of like life. Like, it is life. And it's so bananas how these stories get like that's a mom story. The first time I ever did a literary reading was at this wonderful festival called Mission Creek here in Iowa. And I had been invited. It was like the first time, and it's like in Iowa City, which is, the city of literature. And I was so excited because it's just chock full of like book nerds. And have you come to Mission Creek? Uh,
I haven't yet.
Oh God, it's so fun. And I would love to have it happen again one day. But I was just so excited. And I decided to
Mhm,
read a mom blog that I had written literally for a
mhm,
mom website because it was funny. And like you go
mhm,
to readings and like everybody just reads like really intense poetry and they do it in like poet voice. And then like I was like,
mhm,
I'm just gonna read a mom blog because it's funny, but it's also like social commentary.
mhm,
And I got up and I remember getting up and making a joke about how like I thought, just it was like a really stupid literary joke about how like I thought that mom blogs had been unfairly excluded from the nonfiction literary canon. I was joking. And like after like you afterwards I'm drinking with people and somebody was like, that was really brave to criticize the nonfiction literary canon like that. And I was like, what? And he was like, well, I don't read mom writing, but you know, that was brave. And I was like, go
mhm.
away. I'm drinking. But yeah, like that kind of like, and I think I just keep getting so frustrated about it right here in America right now. And I do think there are more people saying, hey, this is a problem, especially after this year, but you
Mhm,
still keep seeing it sidelined to like mom conversations when really
mhm,
this is like a societal issue.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know how to
yeah,
solve it besides just screaming about it until
yeah,
people
yeah,
get mad at me enough and then want me to shut
yeah.
up.
Well, I think just my hope is, and this is even like why I started the conversation talking about the stories that you've heard, is is the it just seems to me that the more and more and more voices on
Yes.
top of it is where this matters. I the Some of the work I did on postpartum depression was published in 2013, and to this day I get emails from
Yeah.
moms and the men and women who are in love with them and who are trying to understand what was happening to them, uh, and how people are able to see one another in stories. But in the same, and I'm interested what you think about this, Lyz, because in the same breath that I say that, like I think of the part in the book you quoted, oh God, I think her name is Jen Gann, who was writing in the cut about the movie Tully, and she was saying like, how many completely gnarly and disgusting depictions of motherhood do we need before people like start to understand that something needs to change,
Yes.
uh, right? And I think about that, like I thought about this after the Access Hollywood tapes,
Yeah.
when my Twitter feed was just all women sharing the greatest trauma that they'd ever experienced, and then
Yes.
bam, a year later it was Kavanaugh, which you talk about in this book as well too, like sitting and watching the Kavanaugh, and then a year after that it was Weinstein. And
Yeah.
every single time there's this mass sharing and just these numbers. That dear friend of mine is the writer, the music journalist Jessica Hopper, and she talks about this through the
Mm.
lens of the music scene all the time. And so I I don't know what I want to say. We have to keep screaming, and yet
You know, that's so funny. I last year I wrote an essay about this for Time magazine where it was just like, at what point do we finally decide to listen to women? And I talked about like the history of women screaming about abortions. I mean, like
Mhm,
people like sharing their stories from like, you know, the 1950s, the
mhm,
1960s, you know, when radical feminists were like storming into congressional meetings and saying like, y'all are all talking about abortions, we should be at the table, like, because we
mhm,
have had abortion, and having protests. And it's like, there is, I don't think, you know, every time these things happen in a moment on social media, we feel like they're these like in these rarefied bubbles, but they're really just part of a great social history of women literally having to bleed in public. Well, maybe not literally,
mhm,
but you know what I mean, like having to bleed in public for anybody to actually listen to them. And we're
mhm,
seeing it right now with Andrew Cuomo. It's like, how many women have to share the worst things that have happened to them in their lives for you to listen? And
mhm,
I guess I wrote about it for Time, and I was like, I don't know. right?
Mhm.
Like, I don't know. And that was something I struggled with the book after doing so much research. I didn't want it to be just another mom book. I wanted it
Mhm.
to be something that, God, I'm going to use a sports metaphor, carried the ball down the field a few more yards. And I think that
Mm.
was where I kind of decided
Mhm.
that like if I can just and help carry the conversation even just inch it forward, then
Mhm.
I that has to be enough, right?
Mhm.
Because movements aren't won and lost in lifetimes. I mean, we're lucky if they are, but this is about something bigger, and that's what I had to sit with, because there were so many times where I was like, I'm not going to get this right. The moment this book is published, I'm going to find out how I screwed up, who I ignored, what I got wrong. And actually people have been just like wonderful, generous readers. So
Mhm.
far that's okay. But like,
Mhm.
but then I just finally had to say, no, this is about, I know I will screw up. I know
Mhm.
I'm not going to get this right, but we need to carry this conversation forward. And so I get the frustration that every time women have to just like, show our veins and our blood and our
Mhm.
guts just to make people listen. And yet, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I struggle with this when I put myself into my writing too. It's like sometimes I don't want to, and I don't. Like you as a writer, you have to have your limits. But I also think like, why do I have to do that to make people care? But then also it's about writing and it's about craft, and people want to care about a person.
Mhm.
So, I do, I don't know. I don't know if there's a great answer to it. And I know a lot of writers who don't put themselves in their writing for that same reason,
Mhm.
because they don't owe people their blood and guts. But I also feel like I'd rather fight with all the blood and guts I have, and know that I did everything I could.
I I really appreciate how and I read all of your stuff. I'm a huge super duper fan. But with this book in particular, how you place yourself more like on like you just did it now, like even if I can help us move a little bit down the line, right? And like placing yourself as part of this chain and how the chain is strong, right? Like you talk
Yeah.
about the writers who've come before you with this subject matter: Margaret Mead, Doris Hare, Bridget Jordan, Adrienne Rich, so many other ones. But
Well,
then
the
you're also,
title itself is a throwback to Mary Wollstonecraft. So yeah.
yeah, yeah, but just like acknowledging their work, but also making space for other people's work. This is from the introduction that you were just talking about. I try to use more inclusive and accurate alternatives in language where they exist, but I am sure I will fail. And my failures will feel constricting and limiting to mothers who don't identify with the words used. My failures are my own. And I hope that where I fail, others will succeed, showing us ways to better reflect the breadth and complexity of our reality. And I like that was a place where like I just put the book down and cheered for you, because I mean, again, I work with so many young writers, and to me that felt like an invitation, like, hello, come to the plate, we need you, we're trying to remake the world. And I love how you offer that invitation to us.
Well, and I hope that I offer that invitation with my life and my work. I mean, one of the best things that I've been able to do in my life was be a managing editor of a literary website called The Rumpus, where, I was
Mhm.
able to publish a lot of writers for the first time. And anytime any writer emails me and says, how do I tell this story? Who do I pitch? I write them back. I help them, because I do believe that I've never I've never believed that one writer should write about one thing, right? Like I've always just kind of believed in like this collective, like Greek chorus of voices, and that if there is if the more voices the better. I remember a long time ago reading Madeleine L'Engle, her book on writing, and you're talking about like how we're all just like streams going into the same ocean,
Mhm.
and that's how I've always kind of, I try not to. On my bad days I do feel, but I try not to feel competitive with other writers,
Mhm.
I think that the more people telling the stories, the more people saying these things, like the better we all are. And so I hope that like with my life and with my work, that my work is, seen as an invitation, to something to build on, but also that like I'll actively be part of, extending that hand to people. I see a bloop. I think we're done.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. If I can just throw out one last thing, like, because now I'm thinking of Lori and just the midwives who've heard so many stories, like the ones that you're talking about here.
Yeah.
And they hear those stories so that they can care for us better, not just our babies, but us too. Yes. And how that is kind of the same thing that you are doing in, I mean, I mean this, Liz, like trying to care for the country a little bit better.
I just want to mom everybody.
All right, Liz, I love you so much. I'm going to show up on your doorstep in Iowa, and we're going to.
Great! I have a great guest room, and I'm gonna power wash my brick patio here.
Oh, perfect! Soon, Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Dan, do you want to come back in and say goodbye to the lovely people who are here? I see you, kind of.
Oh, I just, while we're waiting for Dan to come back, I saw that Allison Myers was asking, repeat the name of the author who wrote the influential book on craft. Is Matthew Salesses? Or was that answered in the chat?
Yep, I got it.
Oh, you did. You got it. Okay.
I did.
Oh man, yes. You are good. You are good. Oh, okay, perfect.
Thanks. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Well, I guess if Dan's not going to come back.
Yeah. Well, we miss Dan. Wait, you've skipped the Savior.
No, I didn't. It's in the book. It's all in there, Helene. It's in there. I just couldn't read the whole book. We didn't have enough time. But if you want to read the whole book, I have some copies. It's good. And it's short. It's not super long.
Yep.
Yeah, Dan, there's Dan says, bye, believer here. I didn't skip that. Trust me. Yes, I talk about Mary and Saint Agnes and Eve and Jesus. It's a lot of Jesus, not that much Jesus. Just enough Jesus. There's enough.
Eve.
Yes, Eve.
Eve and Mary. Eve and Mary we have. Okay.
Yeah, I talk about how we need new creation stories and we need to get rid of our martyr complex.
Mm-hmm.
Get down off the cross. Get into the boardroom. No, I'm just kidding. That's stupid.
Get into Congress.
Get into. Do it, ladies.
All right.
Okay, we should probably just go.
All right.
Will this be available to watch if your friend missed it while she was putting her kids to bed? Oh yeah, real talk. This happened at bedtime. Dan, is this going to be up later?
Yes, it will.
Thanks, Sally.
Then yes, Laura. Yes, and thank you, Sally, and thank you, Lori and Rebecca. I remembered seeing your wonderful comment on women acting as gatekeepers to other women, and you are correct, and that is a problem, and we got to stop it somehow. So, yeah, but that's another talk for another day.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much. Good night, everyone.
Yeah, you can catch up with videos of our past readings, including this one, at our website, wab.org. Thank you so much. I'm sorry my video's not working anymore, but
that's okay.
This was wonderful.
It's the patriarchy.
Yeah, exactly.
We silenced him.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Good
Have
night,
a great
everyone.
night.
Bye.
Liz, you're my favorite.
Bye. Love you.